Welcome back to this week's episode of Tort Talks. It might be getting cold outside, but things are heating up in the world of mass torts. We have the one and only Joe Fantini here. John is out today, but we have a bunch of items to cover for you today after our first Tort Talk back from Mass Tort Made Perfect. Welcome back, Joe, for Tort Talks.
Thanks, Mark. Excited to be here with you. A lot of developments going on, like you mentioned, as we do the last sprint of the final 60 days of 2025.
All right, let's get into it. So J&J Talc ovarian cancer trial. The first J&J post-bankruptcy trial kicks off this week in California. What is the latest in this litigation?
Like you mentioned, we finally have a trial starting. This one's in state court in California after J&J failed on 3 different bankruptcy maneuvers over the last couple years. It was failed, and fortunately, the bankruptcy court ruled in our favor. So finally, we have the day in court and the trial's kicking off. We should expect about a month-long trial going on in California State Court, usually a pretty plaintiff-friendly venue. While that's going on in the state court level, we have another good development, which is pre-trial hearings are going to be going forward for the MDL. Hopefully we get the first trial there in 2026. The main development, I think, in this litigation is we've seen about a 20% increase in cases filed from December of 2024 through now.
Oh, boy.
So right now, J&J is facing about 74,000 lawsuits. The numbers estimate that it could get up to 90,000 by the end of 2026. Hopefully we can get a resolution before then.
Oh, man. All right. Well, so hopefully we'll have some news by the end of the year in the state court with that trial hopefully being resolved before the end of 2025. Next, Monsanto and Bayer, they had a tough week. The Washington Supreme Court reinstated a $185 million verdict related to PCB contamination, and a judge granted final approval to a $38 million settlement that alleged, in part, Bayer downplayed the risks associated with acquiring Monsanto.
Like you mentioned, Mark, pretty tough week there for Monsanto and Bayer. The first development was a case that had a verdict back in 2021. Monsanto appealed that contamination case up. They won on appeal, but then fortunately, the Washington State Supreme Court just came down, reinstated the $185 million verdict in that PCB case. Not a mass tort, but definitely shows you how Monsanto has these other cases going on beyond Roundup. And then tied in somewhat to Roundup is that final approval of the $38 million class action settlement. A lot of it relates to the investors alleging that Bayer really downplayed the potential liabilities that Monsanto faced in the Roundup litigation. So that just got finalized. And then what's going on with Roundup overall is we're waiting to get the next trial started. I don't think we're going to have any trials in 2025. There'll be some trial action hopefully in 26 in Missouri State Court. All that's ongoing while we're still waiting to hear from the Solicitor General about whether they think the Supreme Court should take up this preemption ruling. So a lot of activity. Eyes are still focusing on Roundup throughout the last 2 months in 2025.
This is very exciting news. I'm looking forward to getting more updates on that one. All right. We haven't talked about this one in a little bit, but very exciting, very big mass tort. Social media addiction. The initial trial was set to begin November 17th in California State Court, but that has been postponed to January. What can you tell us about that development?
Similar to like we've seen a lot of these other mass torts, we have parallel actions going on in state court and in the MDL. We were really excited about the initial trial was supposed to kick off in about 2 weeks. That ended up getting postponed a couple months. Basically, what ended up happening was there was more evidence that came out that the plaintiff in that claim might have suffered additional injuries, might have been subject to some predatory actions. So the court allowed for additional discovery to ongo in that case while really setting some firm trial dates, hopefully in 26. It looks like there's going to be 3 trials set. That first one towards the end of January, then in April, then in June. So if we can get all 3 of those trials or even 2 of them, that would be big. It doesn't look like we're going to get a trial in 25, but 26, the pressure is going to be on the big tech companies. Hopefully we get some good results in those cases.
Oh, going to be a big year for social media addiction MDL going into 2026. All right. Last but not least, Paraquat reports indicate that a settlement was reached in the MDL for some of the cases. What is happening in this litigation overall for the rest of 2025?
So just like we usually have in all of the mass torts, we have state court action that's focused in Philadelphia, and then we have the MDL. So in the MDL, there's about 6,400 total cases. Reports indicate that some of the cases ended up reaching settlement. We had this really unique hearing where the judge brought in a plaintiff attorney who, in essence, the court felt might have been trying to undermine some of the settlement in the MDL. Really unique hearing, and basically the attorney stated she wasn't doing that. She was just trying to really share information for her clients in other cases, because while we have this potential settlement in the MDL, the Philadelphia state court actions, where there's about 1,400 cases, is ongoing. So there was supposed to be the initial bellwether trial in the fall. It appears that case settled. So the next case scheduled for trial is in January in Philadelphia. So we'll see if there ends up being a broader settlement, including the Philadelphia cases, along with the rest of the MDL cases in the next 2 months. But the pressure's on the defendants in Paraquat with that Philadelphia trial court setting in January 26.
Yeah, a lot of pressure coming down in 2026 with Paraquat getting some momentum, Roundup getting some momentum. Hopefully we'll get some resolutions here by the end of 2026 with those litigations.
Yeah, a lot going on. So we'll keep you guys updated here at Tort Talk.
Thanks, Joe. Once again, thank you everyone for listening, and make sure you like and subscribe to the channel for future updates, comments, or any questions you guys have. Once again, this is the most important 10 minutes in mass torts. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Joe, for the wonderful updates.
Thanks for having me, Marc.